Four college friends, Samir, Maya, Farah, and Nabil, had planned to meet up at their usual cafe after class. It was one of those days where the sun set early. Before reaching their destination, Farah noticed the faded lights of an old circus near the bus stop. "Why don't we check out the circus tonight?" Farah suggested. She'd never seen one and thought it would be fun. The group paused, a little uncertain, but mostly curious. "I heard that circus is ancient. My uncle says they put on big shows years ago," Maya mentioned as they walked closer. "Yeah, people used to say strange things about this place ever since one of the clowns died here. Some folks think it's cursed. After that, the circus eventually shut down." Nabil tried to spook Farah, joking, "Imagine running into the ghost of that clown. What would you do?" Farah laughed. "Maybe I'd chase you out for being annoying." They bought their tickets, all pretending to be braver than they felt, and made their way inside. The circus tent felt heavier than they expected, full of dusty chairs and muted chatter, like old curtains dampened the sounds. Before the show, a sudden noise echoed from the back, like metal scraping. Nabil brushed it off, saying, "Probably just someone setting up backstage." The main act began. A clown named Bobby Jester danced onto the stage, goofing around and making faces at children. His performance was actually funny, causing the group to loosen up a little. "He looks weirdly like your brother," Maya joked to Samir. Without warning, the entire tent went dark. People started murmuring anxiously. Samir, trying to calm the others, reached out to check if everyone was still nearby. Farah's voice trembled. "Don't mess around. I hate the dark." The lights flickered back to life. Something felt wrong. Every seat except theirs was empty. Only the four friends remained, staring at the silent stage. Bobby the clown still stood under the spotlight, but his skin was pale as chalk, his eyes almost glowing in the gloomy light. A slow, creaky voice broke the silence. "Now it's time for my special show," Bobby announced, his smile twisted and strange. A cold shiver ran through the group. Bobby continued, "Tonight, my guests can't leave. You belong to me now." His words drew out, and his eerie laughter filled every corner, echoing off the walls. Samir felt someone breathing behind him, a thin, icy breeze. Whipping around, he saw Bobby's red eyes fixed on him, unblinking. A loud scream came from somewhere in the tent. It sounded like someone in terrible pain, but nobody else was there. The lights blinked again, and suddenly the four friends found themselves in an unfamiliar room. The floors were sticky, the walls painted with odd, disturbing shapes. There was a huge mirror, and their reflections didn't look quite right. Each shadow had deep red eyes that didn't seem like theirs. Bobby's laughter followed. "Welcome. You're my guests now." Desperate, Maya pleaded, "Please, we just want to leave." Bobby shook his head. "It doesn't work that way. You'll have to earn your way out. Ready to play?" The four exchanged nervous glances and nodded, feeling trapped. Bobby pointed at a faded door. "Step through, and you might come back to your world, or you might stay here forever." There wasn't any choice. When they approached the door, a blinding flash pulled them forward, and the room vanished. They found themselves standing in a place that looked nothing like their town. A cold stretch of earth, old gravestones tilted at odd angles, and bodies part buried in the dirt. Bobby followed, arms stretched wide. "This is my circus, and you're just like the others, ready to join my side." Suddenly, a large hand shot out from a mausoleum, grabbing Samir and pulling him away. Maya and Farah shouted his name, running to help. Farah's leg felt like fire, a sudden pain, sharp and burning. When she looked down, a corpse-like hand clung to her, pulling tighter. Samir's voice called out, but the earth swallowed him. Farah struggled to free herself, while Maya and Nabil tried to pull her away. Another hand caught Maya's ankle, cold fingers closing around her skin. Nabil, frantic, spotted a thick wooden branch lying close by. He attacked the clawing hands, swinging until the corpses let go and shrank back into the shadows with a chilling shriek. With Samir gone, the three reached the edge of the cemetery, but Bobby's laughter chased after them. "Nobody ever escapes. This circus will claim you all." They ran, stumbling into a thicket of strange leafless trees. No path led anywhere safe. Suddenly, a thick vine wrapped around Maya's leg, dragging her under a crooked tree. She choked, gasping for air as it tightened. Farah and Nabil tried desperately to save Maya, but the vine didn't loosen its grip. Within seconds, Maya stopped struggling. Her face turned pale as she slipped away. Bobby called out, "Couldn't save your friend? Don't worry, you'll join her soon enough." Grief turning to panic, Farah and Nabil made the hard choice to leave Maya's body behind. The only way out was forward. But Bobby's voice taunted them. "Thought you were done? The best part is just ahead." In an instant, the scene shifted again. The pair now stood in the lobby of an old apartment building. Dirty walls, flickering lights, and a lift that opened as if waiting for them. Nabil hesitated. Farah said, "It looks like there's no other way." Together, they stepped inside. A screen inside the elevator came to life, displaying the message, "If you want a way out, make it through room 12. The lift rattled, stopping on the 12th floor. The hallway was silent, dust swirling in the air, and as they walked into room 12, the door slammed shut. On a rickety desk lay a notebook. Farah picked it up, searching for answers. Inside, she found pages filled with odd sketches, circus tents, masks, and clowns with hollow eyes. One entry explained why Bobby became a vengeful spirit. Years ago, some circus managers had hurt him for their own big publicity stunt. They made it look like an accident, but the truth stayed hidden in this very room. After Bobby was gone, other clowns had impersonated him, keeping the secret buried with hidden clues inside the circus walls. As Farah read, Bobby's voice echoed through the apartment, growing louder with each sentence. "Now you know what happened, but my story isn't over." Farah and Nabil turned as Bobby appeared again, his face twisted by anger. In his hand was a sharp, gleaming blade. They rushed to the door, but it wouldn't open. Bobby advanced, laughing softly. In the final moments, both Farah and Nabil tried desperately to push past him, but Bobby was stronger.
The story only ended as both fell silent, another pair lost to the haunted circus. And just like that, the circus lights went out. It looked empty from the street, but Bobby stayed inside, waiting for new faces and more guests to play his never-ending game.
It was a regular weekday, and I ran out of milk late in the evening. The supermarket near my apartment is only about 10 minutes away, so I decided to make a quick trip before they closed. It wasn't busy at all. I remember there were only a handful of shoppers inside. I took my time, wandered through the aisles, picked up a few snacks, and grabbed what I needed. By the time I left, it was already past 9 o'clock, and the parking lot outside was pretty empty. Streetlights cast long shadows across the rows of cars. My car was parked somewhere in the middle, and I noticed there were just a few other vehicles nearby, nothing out of the ordinary. Or so I thought. As I drew closer, I noticed the silver sedan had pulled up right next to my car. What struck me as odd was that when I arrived, there were plenty of empty spaces all around, and that car definitely wasn't there before. Why would anyone park right next to me in such a wide-open lot? I shrugged it off at first and started loading my groceries into the trunk. While I was putting away the last bag, I happened to glance over at the other car. At first, I didn't see anyone, but then I spotted someone sitting in the driver's seat. He looked like any normal guy, except for one huge, creepy detail. He was wearing a clown mask, but not the silly, colorful kind you see at kiddie parties. This one was detailed and unsettling, with fake, yellowed teeth and bumpy, rosy cheeks, the kind that makes your skin crawl a little. I remember thinking, maybe it's a leftover from some Halloween event, but in the middle of the year? Isn't that strange? He wasn't moving, just sitting there. At first, he wasn't looking at me. I tried not to stare and finished up quickly. I returned my cart, walked around to the driver's side door, and got in. As soon as I settled in my seat and turned my head, I realized the clown-masked man was now looking directly at me. He didn't wave or say a word. He simply stared, completely still. For a split second, I tried to convince myself it was a harmless prank, so I smiled, kind of awkwardly, and looked away. Trying not to show any nerves, I started my car. The engine roared to life. And the very moment I put my car in reverse, I caught sight of the other car's headlights turning on. The clown started his engine too. As I pulled out of my space and began heading toward the parking lot exit, I checked my mirror. Sure enough, the silver sedan eased out of its spot and started following close behind. That's when my nerves shot up. There was no real traffic on the main road, just a few cars passing on the far side. The clown car was still right behind me as I turned onto the street. I purposely took a left instead of my usual way home, hoping maybe he was headed in the other direction. But he made the same turn as I did, matching every move. I told myself not to panic, but my heart was pounding. All kinds of thoughts ran through my head. Was this really just some weirdo trying to mess with me, or was he planning something worse? It wasn't even a holiday. The clown mask didn't fit any reason I could imagine. I switched lanes, slowed down, sped up. No matter what I did, the car stayed behind me. It wasn't like we were in heavy traffic either. It was late, so the streets were mostly empty. I couldn't lose him in a crowd or blend in. The whole situation just felt wrong. I picked up my phone and dialed my boyfriend, Omar. He answered quickly, but when I told him someone in a clown mask was following me, he thought I was joking. He actually started laughing and asked if I was playing some kind of prank on him. I tried not to sound fearful, but I made it clear I wasn't kidding. He told me not to worry and suggested I come straight over to his house, which is about 5 minutes away from my apartment. I agreed that was probably the safest thing to do. The clown car stayed close behind as I left the main road and took the turn toward the quieter streets of the neighborhood. My boyfriend's street is usually peaceful at night. Streetlights, neatly lined up houses, and a couple of dogs barking in the distance.
The farther I drove, the more intense the feeling in my chest became. When I reached Omar's house, the clown car was still right behind, slowing down as I pulled into the driveway. What happened next felt straight out of a movie. I was halfway onto the driveway when the front door of Omar's house swang open. He ran outside wearing this ridiculous old clown mask from some party a couple of years ago. In one hand, he held a plastic yellow bat, swinging it like some cartoon character, screaming nonsense and flailing his arms. The silver sedan hesitated at the edge of the driveway. Omar kept running straight at the car, yelling and waving the bat. The clown mask driver hesitated for a moment, as if unsure what he'd just encountered, then slammed his car in reverse, pulled a sharp turn, and sped off down the street, gone in a few seconds. For a moment, I just sat in my car, stunned and a little embarrassed. When Omar finally took off his mask and came over to my window laughing, I could hardly believe he'd managed to scare the other clown off just by acting so crazy. We went inside and locked the doors. Omar thought the whole thing was hilarious and kept calling the stranger a coward clown for running away. I was more shaken than amused, but I was definitely grateful, too. I remember thinking how much worse it could have been if I'd been alone that night, or if things had played out differently. We talked about it for a long time. Neither of us could figure out why anyone would wear a clown mask in the middle of the night and follow someone home. Maybe it really was just a strange prank, or maybe the mask was a way to hide his face while doing something bad. Whatever his reason, I guess he didn't expect someone else in a clown mask to jump out at him. As much as Omar joked about it and acted casual, I know he was trying to make light of a really tense moment. I actually slept better knowing he'd taken charge, even if he did it in such a silly way. Still, sometimes I think about those minutes in the car, with the headlights behind me and the clown's blank stare stuck in my memory. I don't know what his real intentions were, and I hope I never find out. Some nights, when I pass a parked car or see an empty mask in a store window, I remember just how quickly an ordinary evening can turn into a story that you never forget. And I remind myself, it's always better to be careful, and maybe to see the humor in a scary situation when you can.
This happened when I was in my first year of high school. Back then, I still lived with my parents and my older sister in what I'd call a very normal, middle-class neighborhood. Our backyard was a decent size, and right at the very end of it, there was a small patch of trees, maybe 20 feet deep, that separated our property from the houses behind us. One night, I was in my room playing video games, completely zoned out. My sister was across the hall in her room, and my parents were relaxing in the living room. I had my usual gaming setup, comfy chair, a big screen, and my headphones lying off to the side. I had just reached a loading screen, so I leaned back to stretch. Out of habit, I turned my head toward the window next to my desk. My window faced the backyard, and from my seat I could see all the way to the tree line. That's when I noticed something weird. At first, my brain didn't quite register what I was looking at, but after a few seconds, I realized there was someone standing just inside the edge of the woods. They were right between two thin trees, partially hidden, and they were wearing a clown mask. I squinted, thinking maybe I was imagining it, but the longer I stared, the clearer it became. It was definitely a clown mask. Not colorful or fun-looking, but pale and strange, with dark eyes and a frozen smile. The figure wasn't moving. They were just facing the house, facing me. A twinge of panic shot through me, and I got up to get a closer look. That's when I was sure somebody in a clown mask was watching from the woods. I bolted out of my room and told my parents what I'd just seen. They followed me back to my room to look, but by the time we got there, the person was gone. I pointed to the exact spot I had seen them, and we decided to check outside, just to be sure. We searched the yard and looked toward the fence at the back. The small wooded strip behind our house wasn't big at all, which made me think whoever it was must have slipped out quickly, maybe heading into one of the neighboring yards. It was unsettling, but at least they were gone. That night, nothing else happened. I went back to gaming, though I kept glancing out the window every now and then, just in case. The next several days were uneventful. No strange noises, no sightings, and I started to think maybe it had just been some dumb prank. But less than a week later, everything happened again. Only now, it was worse. This time, I was completely alone at home. My parents were visiting friends, my sister was at her best friend's place, and I had the house to myself. Just like before, I was in my room late in the evening playing games. It was around 9 o'clock. For no real reason, I glanced toward the window, almost like my eyes went there on their own, and my stomach dropped. The clown was back. Only now he wasn't hiding in the woods. He was standing in the middle of our backyard, much closer than before. No trees in the way, no shadows or half cover, just him facing my window, watching. I froze. Every part of me wanted to keep looking, but at the same time, I couldn't stand his stare. I jumped up, yanked the blinds down as fast as I could, and left my room instantly. I called my parents and told them he was in the yard again. They told me to call the police if he didn't leave right away. I peeked out through a different window in another part of the house, but there was no sign of him. For a moment, I felt a wave of relief. Maybe he'd just walked off. But then, a knock at the front door. Slow, heavy. My chest tightened. I crept toward the living room window and looked out. There he was. The clown stood on the front step, still wearing that same disturbing mask. I didn't dare open the door. I didn't even want him to know I was watching. Instead, I stepped back quietly and ignored it, hoping he would leave. I went back to my room, put on my headphones, and forced myself to focus on the game. My hands were sweating, and every little sound in the house made me flinch. After what felt like forever, my parents finally came home. The clown was gone, and I don't know if he left seconds before they arrived or much earlier. We looked around outside, but of course, we didn't see anything. After that night, I kept my bedroom window covered pretty much all the time. Anytime I did glance outside, the first place my eyes went was to that tree line, just to check.